Hello, hello. Like so, on today's aspect of emotional intelligence, we are going to be looking at, you know, displaying emotional intelligence in platonic relationships, how to handle emotions in platonic relationships. I'm not going to be delving deep into it. I'm just going to give us a few tips that could, help us to put our emotions in check, especially in platonic relationships. Now, the first thing I have is defining the relationship. For a relationship to be healthy and successful, there needs to be a definition of that relationship. What kind of relationship it is? I know friends, what kind of friends, what kind of relationship. It could be relationship based on an area of your life. That is something I've come to know. When we classify people as friends, we do that based on how we got to know them, the level of influence we have in specific areas of our lives. So yeah, define a relationship based on the influence of such person in a particular area. What kind of friends, what kind of area does that person have, the right to influence. The same way you have mentors for different, areas of your life. There are people you listen to concerning marriage. There are people you listen to concerning academics. There are people you listen to concerning success. I believe that is how relationship should be. There should be friends, that you relate with in certain areas of your life. So defining a relationship is one healthy way to handle our emotions. That's the basic step. And then the second thing I have here is clearly stating your expectations from a friend. I just learned this thing with my friend, after we became officially friends. And I was like, so what are your expectations from a friend? And I was like, wow, that's what I think. And I believe that is something that we should all imbibe. That is something that we should all, practice in our friendships. Define your expectations because we are getting involved with people from different backgrounds, people that have different perspectives. And because these are different personalities, these are different people, their expectations are going to be different. Now, I'm not saying you should live your life based on the expectations of your friend. There has to be a meeting point. Obviously, if you don't have just one friend, then you can never have just two friends. I don't know. But let's look at a situation where you have like 5 to 10 friends and everybody, those 5 to 10 friends have like different expectations of your friends. You're not going to, you show yourself and meet up with those 5 or 10 expectations. But then there are common things, right? There are common grounds, and there could also be things that are doable for you. You may not have been practicing them with your former friends, but with this particular person, especially when it's something particular to that person. Now, what do I mean? Okay, I'm getting to build a friendship with this. Okay, let me name a person. I'm getting to build a friendship with Bessie, and she tells me that her expectations. One of the expectations she has of a friend is, you know, someone that should be visiting, and the person will be visiting us, like visiting of family, like visiting your house or like where you stay. That may not be something I do, but I could I could become intentional about that when I'm relating to her. So in a nutshell, getting to know the expectations from the different people that you involve yourself in would help a lot. It will help you to know how to, relate to this person, to know how to treat this person, how to react towards them, and you become intentional about those things that are particular to this person, right? So yes, this is something that we try out, getting to know the expectations from your friend. And then the third thing that would help us in handling our emotions well in platonic relationship is respecting each other's boundaries. And this is another advantage of knowing your expectations of a friend. Now, as a friend, I don't expect you to call me for a guy. I don't expect you to call me anything later than 11 p.m. Right? So now this is a part of my expectation. So going a step further, as a friend, you should be able to respect that. That is a boundary. And that is not just an expectation, it's a boundary that I've set for myself. So we respect each other's boundary. So respecting each other's boundary is going to build some sort of value and honor for you both emotionally. And you just said that there are lines, there are things that you should not do. right? And it's going to help to guard our hearts. And the fourth thing, I wrote down here, intentional to find out the likes and dislikes of your friends. Doing this will help to reduce areas of quarrels. I believe this still falls under the, you know, setting boundaries, and like that's the place of the expectations and then respecting those boundaries. So first answer like from the expectations, you find out the likes and the dislikes of who you call a friend, or you know anybody you are trying to build a platonic relationship with. I usually say them to somebody and then they make statements of, you know, I don't want to do anything that will make you angry. I don't want to do anything that will offend you. Sorry if this is wrong, you know. And I found that very nice. I found that very, very intentional. Let's get to be intentional about not doing things that will make your friend down, or not doing things that would make your friend begin to think of you in a certain way that was never there. So talking about emotional intelligence, right? And we talked about expectations, we talked about respecting boundaries. Let me talk about the aspect of emotional boundaries. And that is why I first said you should define a relationship. And because we are talking in respect to platonic relationship, a platonic relationship should be without strings. It should be on a genuine love base. It should be, without, I don't want to use the word emotional attachment, because I mean you need to have some sort of emotions for someone you call a friend or someone that you want to build a platonic relationship with. But what I'm trying to say is the fact that you define a platonic relationship, there is no need for emotional intimacy. Yeah, that's the word. So we're doing things, saying words, giving actions that would make somebody to start thinking of it in a certain way is not right, right? And then we are talking about learning to respect boundaries. So that is a boundary we need to respect. Emotional boundaries. We are so much about the physical boundaries, but then I believe there should be emotional boundaries too. We're in a world, we're in a generation where we feel like it's cool to have real friends, and then you begin to talk about sexual things, you begin to talk about intimate things, and you forget that emotions are involved here, especially when it has to do with the opposite gender, the opposite sex. Emotions are involved, and she cannot play hide and seek with that. Like, it's going to tell later on. So, I said I'm not going to go deep into this. I'm just going to talk about this later on. But there are emotional boundaries that should be respected. And when we come to know this, and when we come to build on this, platonic relationships, even with the opposite sex, is going to be very beautiful. And until we know the place of emotional boundaries, we are going to keep, suffering words. We're going to keep having people walking about with wounded hearts, and then you see feel like it doesn't matter what it is. Let's be honest to ourselves. It does matter a lot. Now, another thing I would like to talk about is the aspect of knowing yourself. Self-awareness is key in building relationships. Any type of relationship, whether platonic or romantic, self-awareness is key. And I believe this is still in line with the emotional boundaries, because now I'm talking about platonic relationships. So self-awareness, are you the emotional type? Are you the nonchalant type? And then I was listening to a video by Pastor Emmanuel Aaron and emotional intelligence, and he talked about people that display emotional detachment. No, it's not what you call it, avoidant. Yes, avoidant detachment. A situation where um, people feel scared or feel insecure when someone else is trying to invade their space, especially indoor, and then you feel like this person is doing too much, and you need to distance yourself. So this is still under part of self-awareness. Know yourself, know love. But then, if you are somebody that is sensitive to physical touch, that should be a no-no for you in platonic relationship and even a romantic relationship, because being sensitive to physical touch is going to build a sort of sensation, emotional sensation in you, and from that emotional sensation, it's going to graduate to sexual longing. Yeah. So emotional awareness is going to help you to know the kind of things that you are prone to and the things that you should avoid. If you are sensitive to physical touch, then that should be part of the boundaries in a platonic relationship, even in a romantic relationship. If you're sensitive to sweet words, when building a platonic relationship, you should be able to point out to this person that You should mind your words, you should mind the things you see. So if you're, I think I was telling that to a guy I said to him, and I told him, now ladies are emotional. I tried to explain to him, ladies are emotional. So you should watch the words you say. And yeah, he got the message right. So if you could do that too, if you are sensitive to words, set that as a boundary too. Because I mean, guys, I think guys naturally have this with mouth stop. Yeah. So because you're trying to guard your heart, you're trying to guard your emotions, you should be able to, draw a line and find a common ground. So that's the place of knowing yourself. It's going to help the both of you know the things that you should avoid, the things that would hurt you or the other person involved, so that you both guard yourselves emotionally. And if you guard yourself, if you're able to guard yourself emotionally, you'll definitely be able to guard yourself physically. Then I wrote something here, still on knowing yourself. I wrote down here that it will help you coordinate or regulate your emotions. We're talking about emotional regulation. And then it will help you, being able to control yourself in case of a misunderstanding. So apart from, the being sensitive to words or physical touch, emotional or self-awareness also deals with knowing how quick you are to anger. Are you the patient type? Are you the type that would, just shrug things off? Are you the type that wants to talk things off? So knowing yourself will help you know how to settle disputes or how to settle misunderstandings. And in the aspect of, regulating or being in control of your emotions, self-awareness will help you at this point, you know the things that trigger you, right? And I believe that those are the things that you talk about in, your expectations and in setting boundaries. You know the things that trigger you. And because you are aware that these are things that trigger you and, you are ready to build this relationship with this other person, you have to be intentional about not letting yourself get over things like that. You have to be intentional about being able to control that because I mean the other person involved is a human and humans are prone to making mistakes, right? So you should be able to come to a point where you tell yourself that even if it gets to this point, and so the person does something that you don't like, instead of overreacting, you should be able to like bring yourself down. That is what self-awareness will help you to do. Instead of overreacting, at that point, you feel hurt or you feel pain or you feel sad about that particular thing. But what's the best thing to do? To calm down. And then when you are certain that you're finally calm, you can then talk things out like adults do. Right? So that's all about the self-awareness. Then another thing I want to talk about is people should have a way of resolving conflicts. Right? From the message I was listening to by Pastor Emmanuel, he talked about now there are people that when something happens, they want to talk it out. You know, situations or conflicts are not settled within them unless they talk it out. And then there are some persons that will just shrug it off. And then, there are people that have this mindset or this mentality that let's give it time, it's going to cool off. And, they act all cool as if nothing ever happened. Now, building a platonic relationship with somebody, I've talked about aspect of self-awareness. Now you should know yourself, whether you're a person that wants to talk it out or you're a person that easily shrugs things off. There's also the aspect of knowing this other person. Does this person like to talk things out? Or is the person the kind of person that doesn't feel, I don't know, that doesn't feel bothered, but the person, like, person's way of resolving conflict is like cooling it off, like the person just walks away and goes out to cool his head or her head. You know, knowing that is going to help you to know how to regulate, handle conflict. And that is why I earlier talked about define the friendship. In defining the friendship and setting boundaries, you get to know a lot about yourself, knowing the person's characteristics. So you are getting to know a lot about that person, and it's going to help you to know the kind of person that you're involved with and how to be able to handle conflicts. Now, I'll give you an example. I'm a kind of person that I love to talk things out. Like you see all these things of give you time to heal. That is not me. I would want to, I would want to know why this happened, what happened, what was the reason. I want to know every single. detail about whatever happened. I'm the very analytical type. I would analyze everything in my head. And if it doesn't sit right in my head, I'm going to find a way to get it right with you. And until I do that, my relationship with you is going to be very, it's not going to be so good. It's going to be obvious that no, this is not good with me, right? I don't know how to, I don't know how to carry it all in and pretend like nothing happened. That's not me. I want to talk it out. So let's say I'm getting to build a relationship, a platonic relationship with someone that doesn't just act all cool as if nothing ever happened, and keeps up this type of they just keep it there. I feel hurt by that, that whole motion. I feel like this thing is giving me concern, and then you are just there acting cool as if nothing ever happened. So the place of emotional intelligence is knowing that this thing hurts you, and instead of carrying that hurt inside you, you're going to be emotionally intelligent if you set out time to talk about this thing, and you have to do that from a standpoint of understanding. Now something happened and you were hurt and you feel so bad and you want to talk about it to find out why. You're not going to do it in a hot state. You're not going to do it in distressing state. You're going to first calm yourself down and find a convenient time and a convenient space to talk about it. You know. And in talking things out, I've noticed that for this other person, he doesn't see it as an issue. If you come with the vibe of you did something wrong, you need to talk, it's going to, give off this so serious vibe, and that person is not cool with it. So the person is not going to be safe, or the person is not going to feel free talking about that particular situation. The person is going to put up a defensive mode, and you don't want that when you're trying to settle an argument, right? So in trying to talk things out, and it should be cool. It should be done cool in a more understanding state, right? So that's about getting to or finding a way to resolve conflicts. Now I would like to talk about this in summary. Working towards building and sustaining platonic relationships. When we're dealing with emotional intelligence, it's something we can build, and it's something that's going to demand work. It is something that's going to stretch us. It's not easy. We're all learning these things, right? I would like to talk about not acting based on our emotions, based on how we feel. Impulsive, being impulsive to our emotions. Now, what do I mean? So let me say this. Your friend said something, genuinely like, innocently, but then that will hurt you. It's you were hurt by by that sentence, or by that statement. An emotionally intelligent person, you you are not expected to reply back in that hurt state. It's best for you to, figure out why the person said this. And thinking about this now, I believe the world would be a better place if we all can work towards emotional intelligence, on an everyday basis. Because we come across people, we meet different people, people say things, people do things, and it's as though we are very prone to react to people's statements. And that is why you see people driving and then people just start fighting on the market, on the market, on the roads, people don't even know each other. They're exchanging words and everybody is so high emotionally. If you check these things, right, these are just things that this other person could have done innocently without thinking it through. As an emotionally intelligent person, you should be able to discern. Yeah, Pastor Emmanuel talked about, the place of discernment as a social skill. Should be able to discern where this is coming from. There are exposures on the internet, on social media, get things like aura, anybody that does not retaliate to the person, things like this, and people just give into this emotional inputs. People just give into these things without really, checking them. So that was what, and I was able to point out that this could be what, this person is going through. This person is not just acting nonchalant because that's how the person is. This is as a result of, first it is functionality and then the kind of exposure in trying to heal and trying to build up yourself. And I believe that is the mindset we should have, in relating with people. I'm not even talking about building relationships, I'm talking about now everyday life. It's going to save us a whole lot of emotional stress if we can be able to come to a point where we discern, where the statements people make are coming from. We're able to discern where things people do are coming from. I'm not saying this as though or as someone that has learned. I'm saying this as someone that is coming to know. I am still learning, and it's something I believe we all should learn. We should not always act based on our emotions. We should be able to calm ourselves down. And when we speak or when we talk to people, when we address issues, we should do so from a place of understanding. We should do so from a place of demeanor. And I think it's going to help our relationship with people in our everyday life. And it's also going to help our relationship with our friends, platonic relationships. So that's all we have for you today on emotional intelligence and building platonic relationship. And I hope this was really useful. I hope this was helpful. And I want you to do one thing for me. What points stood out to you? What points are you going to work on? You can, let us know in the comment section. And still also give us a thumbs up. Yeah, like this because I know that it was very helpful. And leave us a comment. Don't forget to also share this with your loved ones, with people that you know should see this. And if you're yet to subscribe, you see this ad? Yeah, hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell, and so that I can keep getting more updates. I'll see you in the next video.